So I'm hoping today, within the half-hour session, it will be fairly intuitive what these optimization changes are and how they impact you. But if they're not, this is a great resource to go back to. And of course, today's recording will also be populated here. So you all should have received some communications around this. I believe our first one was like mid-April, just around some changes that might be occurring. And today is the day, yay, at CU Denver, where these we're really flipping the switch, if you will. So I will say right now, start trying to log into your Marketing Cloud account. I think it's going to be the most productive today. And as we saw at our UCCS transition, that just go ahead and look in your account. What I'm saying should kind of add up, but we're hoping it's pretty intuitive. And if you have any questions at this point or during today's session, we'll hopefully address it. But we're really hoping it's minor changes for y'all. And again, exactly as we've seen at UCCS. So this preference and business unit optimization project, I won't spend too much time on this because it's very high level, but from our office, this is something that takes a lot of resources. And so I've been with the program for about 11 years, and we often talk about how many preferences we have, how many business units we have, the costs that come with that, as well as the resources that it takes to maintain those things. And that also feeds into our constituents' experience. So we've done a lot of analysis and found out that these many preferences and many business units are unyielding, not only for us, but for our constituents. And so optimizing these two areas will set us up for more success in the future. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it within this wiki, but we do have longer term projects that we're really excited about that this will set the stage for. And why I'm not spending time on it today, there's no impacts today. These changes will come at a later point in time, and we will communicate at that point. But I know some of you have interest in what we have down the road, so that's a great resource for you. I am also going to skip over user impacts. And the reason for that is we are going to still touch on impacts today, but I'm going to focus more on the user training area. That should be just the quickest. What do I need to know? What changed? What do I need to do different moving forward? Whereas those user impacts should have been communicated with you in the last couple of weeks, as well as that April communication. So no need to admit it, but I'm sure there's probably half of you on the line thinking, oh, I didn't really read that email or it didn't really mean much to me. That is perfectly fine. We will get through everything today, and you should be able to just continue on swimmingly. I will be asking for some thumbs up throughout the session, just a heads up on that reaction so I can make sure y'all are following along. If you haven't yet, I'm going to pause. Please go ahead and log into your Marketing Cloud account. If you have already, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Thank you. So we'll start off slow. I know a couple of you are still logging in, but you'll be able to catch up quite quickly. So this user training section, you'll see that the recording is not there yet, but I will get it posted as soon as possible if your colleagues are looking for that resource. But we'll also send another message tomorrow, letting folks know where that is. So essentially, like organization across Marketing Cloud. So one thing that might be slightly different, you may or may not really notice even, is in the top right corner of Marketing Cloud. And I myself need to make sure I am logged in because I'll be navigating along with y'all. So I have access to many different business units, what you see in this drop down in the top right corner. Most of you have access to one. Some of you might have a couple different business units. And so those names might have changed slightly. And that was really for consistency's sake in many cases. In some cases, we're kind of combining business units, so it made sense to rename them. but that is incredibly minor. If anyone is seeing a business unit that they're like, yeah, this seems a little bit weird, please go ahead and put a message into chat. And that could just be something we need to explain, or it could have been an error on our part. So adding items to Content Builder, this might be something that is a slight change of process for y'all moving forward. So in this account, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to, I'm already in Email Studio. You might need to hover Email Studio and click Email in the dropdown after to get to the screen I am on right now. But from there, I'm just going to go ahead and click on Content. And this is where on the left-hand side, previously, if you were in your own business unit, you had full control of your folder structure. Well, you still have a lot of onus here. We just put some kind of parent folders in here, if you will. We're now in this university communications business unit. There are 3 different groups sharing it. So I would consider those kind of the parent folder. And then underneath that, y'all are still welcome and encouraged to create folder structures underneath that as you wish. So long as you're keeping your content, if you work in the chancellor's office, for example, here, we don't want you just putting your assets into Content Builder. We want it to stay organized, so please make sure at minimum it's in your parent folder, but I can tell you guys are very good about doing folders, so I imagine it's even in a further folder. For those folks looking in your account, I know I got that thumbs up, most of you are logged in. Are you seeing a folder structure here that makes sense? Are you able to intuitively tell like which folder is yours? And if I could get some thumbs up there, that would be awesome. Cool. So we do have within this wiki how to move items, because when you add assets, it's pretty easy to put them in a folder, but I know I sometimes just put them in Content Builder and we need to move them after the fact, which is perfectly fine. So I will show you quickly. I'm not going to do it. Nobody on the call be too nervous. But on any of these lines, there's a quick actions, this little down arrow on the right-hand side. And when you click on that, you are able to move it. So intuitive folder structure there. If you find that you've moved a lot of assets to the wrong folder, there's a bulk option as well. You can go ahead and check these boxes and you'll get an actions item in the top right. And from there, you can move them in bulk. So if you do have any folks who are putting things in your folder, don't feel like you need to reach out to your colleague if you're comfortable doing that. But if you're not, we don't want that to be put on you. Feel free to reach out to us and we'll correct that with the user. I think a very small learning curve. So in this optimization, some of us are in a case where we've stayed in the business unit that we used to have, but a lot of us have moved from a previous business unit. So we were not able to copy all historical content. You will be seeing assets that were either modified or added after July 1st of 2022. So we hope that time frame will be enough for most people. But if you're thinking, oh, I had an event invitation series in 2020 that got canceled, I think we're going to revamp it. There's still time that we can go back and get that. Just go ahead and ask your eComm specialist to move that content. I will call out, as I've said here, we're happy to do that through the year. But there are certain cases where some of your business units are getting deleted and sooner rather than later. That's a big part of the cost savings that we're seeing. So if you are in a case where your assets are getting deleted, and we will communicate this more as it approaches this July 31st timeframe, we've called out all of those business units here. We're not going to be able to do that through 2023. We're going to need to cut that off at July 31st. So special note for those getting deleted, and we can talk more in depth about that for those folks. All right, I'm not seeing any questions around Content Builder, which is good, but of course, feel free to drop them into chat or unmute yourself. So this is one, it kind of depends on the campus and units, if folks are using it or not. If I say Salesforce send emails and this doesn't mean much to you, don't worry too much about it. But for those of you who do leverage it, you will notice a similar folder structure. So under interactions and interactions, Salesforce send emails. It's a little hidden sometimes. You might need to hit that little plus sign to get these different messages out there. And I realize we have some other folders in here. This is a group who they had a folder structure in here previously, so we didn't mess with that. But kind of same rules apply here. We don't want everyone's item showing up under Salesforce Sends. It's going to help everyone stay organized if we place those items within your folder. So similarly, if you needed to move it after the fact, you always could. All right. The next piece that we're going to look at is the send classification, sender profiles, and delivery profiles. So all the from information that kind of gets lumped together. And to show an example of this, I'm going to go ahead and find an email. There's a lovely email. I'm going to do a preview and test. So you're welcome to do this as well with an email. Yeah, just make sure it's a template based. I'm going to say preview and test. And then the second option here to send a test. We'll see these different send classifications that are available here. And again, now that we might have multiple groups within one business unit, you might have went from having 5 send classifications to having 15. So we wanted to make sure everyone can still stay organized. There is going to be an abbreviation preceding all of your send classifications in order to keep them organized. So hopefully that abbreviation is also fairly intuitive. Is anyone looking in their account right now and either very confused looking at these send classification options or not seeing ones that you feel like should be there that you would want to use in the very near future? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the thumbs up. Those send classifications, we migrated 100% of them, not just ones that you've used since a certain time frame. So they should all be available there. So moving along to tracking. This is another one that if you've remained in your business unit, that tracking is going to be there. But if you have moved from a business unit, we do not have a way of moving this data in Marketing Cloud. And so, meaning, if you were to go look at tracking and sends, there are certain groups. Again, if you've moved into a business unit, you are not going to see that data here. I will go into in a moment. This was our biggest question at UCCS, so I think it could be the case for you all as well, but we do have a solution around here that this isn't going to mean that the data is gone forever. Just where you kind of view it here, it might not populate. But I want to call out, we have a similar folder structure within tracking that we're going to want you to stay organized and put, if you're sending Chancellor messages, they should go in that Chancellor's tracking folder. And same for these other areas. So that's, once again, we'll see same throughout Marketing Cloud. If you failed to put your send in the right tracking folder, you can do it after the fact. Lovely little check mark, and go ahead and move it to the right folder. So that's another area if you find folks, hey, a lot of people are just putting things in tracking, feel free to let your eComm specialist know, and we'll go back to those users and correct that behavior. But I do want to call out whether we are on, or I will do a guided send real quick because I don't think a lot of people know where you put this into tracking. After selecting that piece, I'm going to select a random audience. I'm not going to go all the way through this, but it is on the configure delivery window. I think most people just send immediately or schedule here, but on the right-hand side, there's tracking options as well. So you can go ahead and put your tracking in a folder on the front end, or you can do it retroactively. Thanks, Monica. It is hidden, right? And so similarly, because I see a lot of Salesforce send emails in here, the exact same options is available, but it is way down at the bottom, my tracking, that you can send it to the right folder. All right, so I know that the tracking piece is like, oh, goodness, I don't want to lose that data. My sense is you're not going to. So we rolled out a few years ago, and some of you may or may not be familiar with this, but we have Salesforce dashboards. So when I said your information might not be available within tracking and sends, I don't want you to think, oh goodness, I need to start exporting this data. No, the data is still going to exist for a very long time. It's just going to be in Salesforce. And so we can do a follow-up session if there is interest in this. I will do a 2-minute bit on this for now, but within Salesforce, we're sending that same data back and it will still remain there. And so we have these business unit dashboards, each for Denver, to see how your emails are performing as well as when your emails are performing. And I'll just look at an example of how they are performing. So then further, there's some filters up here. So this is, if no filters are set, it's going to tell us everything that's going on at Denver, even more broad than just your unit or your communications or even your business unit, which can be interesting, but a lot of data. So it's probably more fascinating to drill into what might be your business unit. So let's do the business school. And I'm just using this as an example to show you that this is where you'll be able to look at your data over a long period of time. Not just your recent stuff. Well, this one's not going back to 2020, but our data is going to go back to 2020. So you'll still be able to, in your future sends, be able to compare them to past sends and see how your audience is still engaging. If I could get a thumbs up, has anybody been leveraging Salesforce dashboards to date?
It's been weird not having them lately because I've had to guess on when to send my emails.
Yep.
Versus using data. So I'm missing them indeed.
I love that. They were broken for a bit. They should be fixed now, but Monica, you are a perfect example where, as I've done it currently, these new business units are reflecting, or the new business units that exist. But if we were to look at like the communications office, for example, we're going to see communications from that entire business unit. So it's going to capture the chancellor's office and their events. And so that may or may not be communications that you want to compare. And so we might need to get more granular than the business unit level So in some cases, I'm using things like from name. So we could hone in even more granularly to see what about all the emails we're sending from the chancellor's office? How are those being received? So I think there's a lot of opportunity to add additional values here. And this was just 3 examples I threw out there. So Monica, if you have any, feel free to send them my way.
I will definitely keep that in mind.
Mhm. No pressure. We can add those whenever. All right, so moving right along, some similar pieces as the same organization using abbreviations to precede things. You're going to see that across the board, as well as that folder structure for each unit, wherever we possibly could do that. So this more so applies to the email preferences and your audiences. But to show this, I'll go back to content and just go through a guided send again. I were to send this email. I'm skipping past defining properties, but selecting my audience, and this is particular in the data extension space. If you're to expand this folder, you're going to see the same folder structure. So your data extensions will be in your folder. And so, yep, eComm specialists now, whenever they make these, they might need to ask you, which folder do you want these in? It could be intuitive and put it in the parent folder, but if you newly set up a folder structure underneath that, that just might be additional information you need to communicate. But this should help us all stay organized. So the folder structure while sending here is wonderful, but I have to call out, I know some of you might be thinking this right now, that very, very important step on data extensions, that you need to refresh them before you send every single time, or your audience is inaccurate and you're probably violating CAN spam. So bad and really bad. So we always want to make sure we're refreshing our data extensions before we send. So that meaning interactions and then import in the dropdown. This is where all the data extensions reside for you to check the box and say start, or as I was saying, refresh. This lovely screen annoys me, but it does not have the same lovely folder structure that we see in the send area. So that is why they might be named differently to proceed with your group's abbreviation as well. And so that is another attempt to organize here now that we have more folks in one account. And of course, our multiple pages down here. So along with these data extensions being moved, this is an area where we did not move 100% of the data extensions that ever existed in your account. There's a lot of them. It's probably safe to assume you might not need some of those old ones, but we also know there's going to be cases where there's data extensions that we didn't move that you're going to need. And that's going to be part of this change that you just need to be a little bit mindful of. And so we did automatically move any data extensions, any recent data extensions. We're considering that were used since March 1st of 2023. Again, if you're thinking, oh, but I had a data extension for a campaign in December that I'm definitely going to need again in August. We didn't delete it entirely, but your eComm specialist does need to tweak it slightly, make sure it's correct before making it available to you. So think about baking a little bit extra time for those cases into your communication plans. I do want to call out one other piece, just highlight how this will be different on the constituent side. I went ahead and sent myself an email from this communications business unit earlier, a media clips one. But if I'm to go down to the bottom to manage preferences, this is where the constituent will see similarly the opportunity to opt out of those 3 different categories. There's just one, or they decide they want all. But this should be a more simplified interface for our constituents. So very good question, Tracy. Similarly to data extensions, reports were managed in the same way. 100% of them are not available. Like data extensions and reports are highly correspond to one another. So those reports, I guess, theoretically are also the only ones that are available, are the ones that were used after March 1st. If you do need reports that were before that, go ahead and submit a request on it. Let us know, hey, I think this existed before. I think this was the name of it. And we should be able to turn that around faster than a brand new request because we've essentially just archived it for now. I know we are at time. I will stick around for questions, but I do just want to add a note there. As always, please continue to submit items via the help ticket. If you have any questions on your account, we're happy to, like I said, it could have been an issue on our side, or like Tula's case, it might be, well, we still need a little bit to work through. So we will definitely do that with you, being your continued partners. Thank you so much for joining.